Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Sendra D, where we dive deeply and help you wake up to the essence of what it means to live a real, authentic, affluent life. Beyond the balance sheets, the bank accounts, the private jets, the political offices, into the realm of inner wealth and personal power. I'm Sendra D, your companion guide on this trajectory of truthful self-mastery as we celebrate your individuality and your sovereignty.
Hello again. My name is Sendra Doyle. I'm the host of Frankly Speaking with Sendra D. Thank you for joining us. And as you know, I try to surprise you every episode. Today I have for you someone I've just come across and is an expert in brand marketing. And I have with me Mr. Michael Doyle. Welcome, Michael.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, of course. Let me tell you a little bit about Michael, and then I'll let him finish or fill in the gap where I've missed. He is the CEO and brand champion of Brand Iron, which is a branding agency, and it produces results. And Michael states that he's raised over $5 billion for clients. And I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about that. But before I do that, it's a brand consulting and marketing firm, and it forges brands and drives revenue. And he has helped over 40 companies get acquired and 20 taken public. That's fantastic. We love these success stories here on the Frankly Speaking with Sendra D show. So you are also an advisor to PE firms, to real estate firms, and to tech companies, correct? And so
That's correct.
You do capital raise. That's fantastic. So you and I have that synergy. I think we'll be besties for a long time. So positioning companies for acquisition, correct? So we're talking about M&A
That's correct.
type deals. All right. So I would rather you tell the audience who you are, what makes you you, Michael. Please don't hold back. Of course, this is Frankly Speaking. Tell us what in your profile you are you most proud of, and what got you to this part of your journey.
Sure. So Brand Iron's been around now 22 years. Before that, I had built up and sold an advertising and marketing agency in the technology space. And one of our clients had grown significantly to the point where they got acquired, they were going public, and they approached us and said, hey, you guys need to sell your firm and need to run our internal marketing and run our brand for this .com. And so I sold my company and reported to, I thought it was part of this big illustrious journey, but the .com bubble had burst. So it didn't quite work out the way I thought it was going to. But during this whole journey, I thought I was going to be doing a lot of branding and marketing. And it turns out one of my major goals, one of my major jobs at that firm was put together what we call analyst presentations. So I put together like a monthly analysis or put together a quarterly pitch deck about how we're doing, what the results, where we're going, what are we trying to get accomplished. And so I did that for a number of years. And through that whole process, I got to really understand what these major Wall Street investment banking firms were looking for. And I said, hey, I could take the same skill. And when I was done, I said, I could take the same exact skill and I could apply it to companies raising capital, companies looking to get acquired, companies to pitch their idea or their concept. And so originally we put together this product called capraisedeck.com to help companies put together pitch decks, capital raise decks, or put together like a management presentation if they were looking to get acquired. So I put together that product years ago, and now we've helped hundreds of clients put together capital raise decks or pitch decks. And we've helped our clients raise more than $5 billion of capital. And I've learned a lot over all these years of what the right story wants to be, what's the financial story want it to be, how do we successfully, clearly and concisely package this and help our clients effectively communicate it in order to help them accomplish their goals and objectives.
That is so fantastic. And I think when I meet founders or people who are just looking to launch a new product, whatever it is at their phase, the phase that they're the life cycle, whatever they're dealing with, and they come to me, I always say you got to start with knowing what you want out of this to think from the end. Isn't that Stephen Covey who says, think from the end? Think about the results you want to get, and the story itself will unfold to get you there. And I love the idea of telling stories, and takes me back when as a young little one. I learned early on how to tell my parents stories, and that prepared me for adult. We are still telling each other stories. And so for you, what was it in your early journey? First of all, did you think you would be here when you started off? I know some people, I have friends who were from the get-go, they knew they were going to be an attorney, or they knew they were going to be a doctor, or those people who are tunnel vision, they just know where they're going to go, or they're going to be the president of the United States,
Yeah.
whatever it is. At what point did you know that you would be here? Or did you ever think you would be here?
No. No, absolutely not. I could have never imagined this in my wild dreams. I went to school to be a teacher. And then once I got out of college, I had to realize I put myself through college. I had to get a real job that paid real money to pay off my education. And so teaching was kind of out of my purview. And so I got a job in business and in sales. And years ago, I started working for this agency in business development. And I worked for them for a couple of years. And I came in on one Friday, and the doors were padlocked and the office was emptied. And of course, it was payday. And so clearly we weren't getting paid. And so I was like, oh, crap, what the hell am I going to do with myself? And so over the weekend, I got a job waiting tables. And then I started thinking about, well, I have all these relationships with all these clients. And so I just started up my agency over the weekend.
Fantastic.
And next thing you know, on Monday morning, I called all these clients and say, hey, how'd you like to come and work with me? And I had no idea that was ever going to happen. It just kind of all happened. And when selling my company, and I thought I was just going to do more marketing, and who knew that I was going to go into doing these analyst presentations, had no clue, had no idea what it was. I had to find out really quick what that meant. And then I got really good at it. And it was in a space where, and it still is very much in a space where people don't know how to tell good stories, especially in a clear and concise fashion. And then I've turned out I was really good at understanding what I call the financial story of packaging and communicating what your performa or what your anticipated results or outcomes want to look like. And then how do we successfully communicate what that would be? That I was going to do what I do now years ago. I had no clue, but it's evolved and changed and morphed into something I really appreciate and enjoy.
That's fantastic. And it sounds to me like many people that I've known that have been able to balance their personal life with their professional life. It's people that just follow their lead. They don't really plan it out. They just follow the tea leaves. They don't get stuck on one goal. It sounds to me that's what you did, because the doors were closed. I mean, you hear about those stories, but I've never met anyone who said the doors were locked and there was padlock and it was on payday. So I guess you had to skip happy hour that day, but you ended up going to work for a restaurant. Then you actually came across, you had a list of clients and they said yes. That's when you know that you're on purpose, because it wasn't difficult. You just went to the next right idea, right?
I didn't say it wasn't difficult.
Oh, you left that part out. Okay, well, it was a little difficult.
And these things aren't always necessarily easy, right?
Right.
They just happen to be. I used to believe in coincidences. Now I don't believe in that at all. I think it's more like a divine inspiration that these events occurred. And you've got to pay attention to what's happening, and you have to be opportunistic and have a positive mindset about these challenges that are thrown in your way. And if you have if you've got a positive mindset and you're opportunistic and you're looking how you can create opportunity and take care of yourself and your family, I think you look for that inner gumption.
That's fantastic. I love the fact that you paused me. You didn't let me run with it, let the audience assume that everything we've done is just so effortless. It wasn't hard at all. It just you have a magic wand. But so, I could talk to you for hours because we're in the same space. I deal with investors and institutional investors and individual investors. But the one thing I definitely want to continue focusing on is the story that you tell. So we talked about, you helping people craft their story. And I was just talking to a friend earlier, and she's reinventing herself. She's an investor and professional as well in the real estate business. And she's like, well, who am I? I was like, well, she said, what do I do? What do I have to offer? That was her point, her question to me. And I said, who are you then? Just think about who you are, because the who you are will determine what you have to offer. So talk to me little bit about that, because you're helping institutions, right, tell a story. So you have to include multiple facets to bring it together to tell a cohesive narrative. All right.
Yep.
So how do you help such complicated entities craft that one unified story that works for all?
Sure. So it's not just major corporations. We work with startups. We work with what we call SMBs, or small and medium-sized businesses that want to get to the next level. And then we work with large organizations as well. And I've also worked with quite a few, like you said, your friend. I worked with quite a few entrepreneurs who are either public figures, and how do we help craft and tell their story? And it always starts with about the same thing: either what's unique to you, and what are those value points that go into the creation of a value proposition? What are those differentiators that communicate how and why you're better or unique? Then how do we put together these, what I call story themes or value points, and kind of how do we tell the different chapters of a story to be able to communicate what we're trying to get to? And like you said, it's always about what's the end goal in mind. So let's want to raise money, or we want to get acquired, or are you yourself or somebody who individually wants to put together and package their message, put together a deck of says, who are you, what you're all about, how and why are you unique, what makes you better than the competition or better than the next person out there. So I always look together and understand what those 4, 5, 6 chapters are, or those value points are, that go into the bigger picture brand story. And understanding that story and what are the themes of that story that go into the bigger picture, value proposition of what we're trying to sell or communicate or convey. And then how do we package and tell that and put it into a timeline and an evolution that makes sense? And then if you're raising capital, or if you're trying to get acquired, there's also a financial story part of it. And we see decks all the time. I get, can you take a look at my deck? Can you offer me some pointers, right? And I can't tell you how many AI generated decks I've seen lately, but a lot. And they are nothing unique about them. There's no differentiators, no value points, just a slog of information, but they don't know how to package it, put it into a storyline that makes sense, that's clear and concise, but communicates the value and helps you go down the path towards helping you achieve your goals and objectives, whatever that is. And so the key is, a lot of times people know what these things are, but they don't know how to, I have to help them extract it or pull it out of them of what are these value points that go into the value proposition, and how do you frame that story or put it into chapters and be able to kind of build upon itself to where you to a conclusion where this makes sense, whether it be making an investment or making an acquisition, or, hey, I want to partner with you, or I love your product, I want to help you take it to market, whatever. So that storytelling theme is really rare, and it's hard for people to wrap their mind around, especially in the capital raise or in the corporate world. What do you mean telling a story? This doesn't make any sense.
I know. This is all about numbers.
It's all it is. And then I can't tell you how many decks I've seen where I've got 20 slides of Excel's 1 or 2 point type on these slides. And I go, there's no story there. How do you, give me a break. What are you trying to say with this spreadsheet? So how can we extract the data from that, reconstitute it, make it look good, and make it part of a compelling story that makes sense and people could easily grasp and understand and say, hey, I love this idea, or I love this concept, or I think this is a great opportunity. Let's find out more. And so I think that storytelling component is what most people miss these days, is how to be able to put all that together into something that is clear and concise and compelling.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't know about what you've experienced, but many of the people that I've come across in the finance and investment world are quite introverted. So it is really hard for them to actually promote themselves. I can tell you when I got my start in banking, I was so comfortable within the bubble of that bank, that institution. Coming out of there to be able to become my own brand was quite challenging. The idea that you feel exposed, you feel vulnerable, and you feel that constant rejection because it's okay if they can reject, Chase Bank, TD Bank, Bank of America, and you're a part of that system, but it's not directly affecting you. But when you come out of it and you're building your own brand, and you are the whole brand. It could be quite traumatizing, I must say. A few years of therapy, I got over it. But that said, I can still see those people within that world who still haven't shed that skin of comfort. And they probably could use someone like you. So tell me, what is your approach in creating a brand strategy for a new company versus an existing one? For instance, someone, let's say like me, who would be coming out of a large company and launching their new company, yeah, as a startup, but they have a clean slate. Whereas an existing company like me, who's an existing company, and just looking to build a bigger or build more visibility, bring more visibility, capture a larger market size. Can you tell
Sure.
me how will you two different approaches for each one?
Actually, they're kind of similar, to be honest with you. So it's always, I like to go is what's the end goal? Like you said, right? What's the end goal of what we're trying to achieve? And what does that want to look like? And then what do we have to do along the way to be able to help you achieve that goal and objective? And how do we communicate this story and an action plan that makes sense? So if you're trying to raise money, you got to be able to say, and we're trying to get to here. Here's the steps along the way to get to here. And here's why and how we're so much better than anybody else. Here's what makes us unique. And then, so I ask the questions. A lot of times they know the answer, but they don't know how to differentiate or separate it from all this other data or noise, if you will. And so I ask, what are you trying to do? It's like the Simon Sinek, what's your why? Why are you unique? Why are you better? In trying to understand what those 3, 4, 5, 6 things are. And people take a look at the marketplace, and I'll take a look and say, what's in that particular category in space, and what are they competing against? And are the things they say they're doing are unique and different, or not unique and different? And if they're not, how can we put together, whether it be experience or put together a process or packaging or features and functionality or financing options or different terms or whatever it is, what is unique about this particular pitch or opportunity or story of an individual, and what makes them so much better, or like what's the wow factor that is unique and better, and that really compels people to sit up, take notice, and want to find out more about what they're hearing. And most people don't understand what those are. And so a lot of times here's the things you're trying to get to. Tell me a little about who you are, why you're better, who you're competing against, and what does this want to look like, so we can help you extract these things that are unique to you, your value points that go into the value proposition. And so part of it's engaging in a conversation to find out what those things are.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. So, can you tell me some of the key elements of a memorable brand? I mean, when you look at some of those household names, we got Nike, and the business in the finance world, we've got Goldman Sachs. I don't know if I like to even say the word Goldman Sachs, but that is a well-known brand. And and then, of course, I believe everything's a brand because I am a brand, besides my company is a brand. And then also you have, especially people who are public figures, you work with a lot of these public figures. And Washington, I can send you to Washington and clean up. I'm sure a lot of them are looking to clean up their brand. And especially what happened. I'm full of jokes when it comes to Washington. So, so those really high profile. So when you think about an existing brand, because of course there was that show called Scandal, and she was a fixer. Olivia Pope was a fixer.
Yeah.
So do you consider yourself a fixer as well? for companies that are having, if they have like if I'm a conflict management professional. So some of these people that have their image tarnished, and they would call in someone like you to try to polish it up. And so how would you go about that? For instance, like, let me see a company that has some major issues. There was an oil spill.
Here's a good example. How about that? I've got a
Yeah.
really good example
Give
for
me
that.
an
So
example.
I have had a medical practice, and you wouldn't think that a medical practice would be confidential, but they got into a place where there's a private equity group trying to buy all their competitors because they came in, bought a lot of the competition, the pricing kind of pressure came down, the customer service wasn't like what some of these other firms that they were competing against. And so they are constantly getting negative reviews, but they didn't have a mechanism in place to get positive reviews from their current clients.
Mm-hmm.
And so we developed a program to be able to compel their current customers or their current patients to give us positive reviews to outmatch or outweigh any negative reviews that were coming down the pike.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard. Say you've got to have 7 positive ones to make up the one negative one, right?
Sure.
And people are so more compelling to go online and trash a business or trash a person because that's kind of what they do every day, right? And versus how many people really go out there and intentionally give positive reviews. I mean,
Right.
not part of human nature. Most people trash things versus
They
uplift
do.
things. And that's unfortunately part of what we see in today's society as well, what we see in social media. So we developed a campaign to compel people to participate, help us out, give us positive reviews, share their positive experience with their friends and their family and their networks. And then before too long, we kind of did this paradigm shift of seeing only negative reviews to seeing positive reviews. And there was way more positive reviews than an occasional negative review. And so we were always trying to make sure we stayed on top of that and get those positive reviews. I do it consistently to push down the negative crap that would come in occasionally, but they never had anything proactive to
Mm-hmm.
promote their brand, promote their message, and push down any negative news that was happening. And
Mm-hmm.
just by asking their friends and family and people that cared within the community and their patients and say, hey, if you like us, please share this.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it really helped significantly. It took a couple of months, but after a little while, it made a huge effect as far as getting the positive reviews out there and reshifting the brand perception from a negative one into a positive one.
That's fantastic. So when you think about the brand, one of your favorite top to talk about, and when I thought about you coming on, is to tell us what makes a brand memorable. So I talked about some of these brands. Why are they so, besides their market cap, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
what are the elements of a memorable brand?
Well, okay, so there's lots of different aspects to that, right? And so we're talking about financing. So let's talk about those type of brands first and foremost, because those are
Mm-hmm.
a little more unique versus the big Nikes and Apples of the world, right? That everybody loves or adores. And so I
Right.
think having a business to business or an investment or finance brand is a lot more difficult. And so let's talk about that for a second. So a lot of times whether it be like a private equity or a real estate investment is do you have a successful track record? Have you done this before? Did you do this at a previous firm that you worked at? So that's how we kind of tap into, let's say you just went it on your own. And so how do we tap into your past experience to give you credibility to do what you're currently doing in your new endeavor potentially? Or
Mhm.
if you're in the real estate sector, how do you have a successful model, if you will, and a track record of this is what we've done on a new build or a existing property that, let's say we bought a new multifamily project and we
Mhm.
put some capital in, we did some capital appreciation and we kind of tweaked it. And with that, we're going to be able to reposition the property, attract new tenants, increase the rates, and be able to produce better returns. And so, what is the model? What is your experience? What's the model? What can we tap into? And then, how do we effectively communicate what those returns might want to look like?
Mhm.
What's your value points? What is near and dear to you heart? Do you have a cause or something that you're trying to benefit by doing this with? And then do you have, by putting together potentially those returns, your process, your model, and why you're doing this, your why or your because, and putting all this together to be able to make it appealing. So you've got 3, 4, 5, 6 different value points between these different package that how do we communicate in a nice, clear, and concise fashion with not tons of spreadsheets, not tons and tons of words. I've seen over 100 slides, and they go, it's going to take a couple hours to go through this. And they go, oh, hell no. How can we get this done in, if we're going to do a pitch deck, I want it to be 20, 25 slides. It's all about a conversation. How do we tell a story? And how do I tell a story within the first 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes to suck you in, get you excited and engaged in wanting to ask more questions? So what's the right elements to be able to tell the story, communicate with your brand, how and why you're different, better, and something that people want to engage with and be a part of? And that's when you're telling a successful story. All brands have a common story about what compels people or engages them to become a fan, be interested in, take an interest in, or take a keenness about them. And the key for all of us, whether it be a B2B brand or B2C brand, B2B, I mean like a business to business or finance or real estate or PE, versus a consumer-oriented brand. So it's just as important, probably more important, to understand what are those value points that go into the value proposition that compose that brand, and know how to effectively communicate that in a clear and concise fashion. That's everything.
Indeed. It is. And so, we're talking about the elements of the memorable brand, but so what we're going to use at some point to tell that story is the pitch deck. I know we touched about it earlier, but I want you to talk about the elements that you cannot do without to have a successful pitch deck. Talk about those elements for the pitch deck to tell that story. What's needed?
Well, they're all a little bit different, right? If it's a true pitch deck, that typically is pre-capital raise, right? And so it always either starts with one or two things. It's either what problem are you solving, or what opportunity are we creating? So you've always got to be able to have something like that.
Absolutely.
What's totally unique and different about you? So that could either be solving a particular problem or creating a brand new opportunity that no one ever thought about. And then you have to say is you've got to kind of do some setup with that. So if it's a problem, well, here's what's happening in this particular industry. Boom, boom, boom. And because of these things, we've developed A, B, C, D. And then here's either what this application does, or what this product does, or what this solution or service does that's unique and better and different, and how it's going to be a game changer, whether it be in a product or service or an offering or even a real estate thing, because you've understand here's how and why this wants to look like. And then how do we package that and tell that and what that wants to be? And so that,
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that the thought of being a problem solver has always been in the forefront in my mind, but I want you to continue on that, because it is actually the ultimate truth. I tell my team all the time, even though I'm in finance, I provide capital, I facilitate capital. All I'm doing is providing liquidity solutions, because everyone who's looking for money is looking for a solution to a debt problem, to provide, to be able to acquire something, to expand something. That's what we do. We are problem solvers. So yes, I fully agree. And that's what I wanted to touch on.
Yeah, no,
I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No. So it's either solving a particular problem or creating an opportunity. Doesn't always have to be bad. It could also be something good, right? It could be, we're not solving this problem because that we don't really care about that. Is that we're creating this brand new product, brand new service, brand new offering that is totally unique and different than anything else out there, which could be solving a problem too, though, if you think about it, right? So we just want to make sure we understand what's out there in the marketplace. What are your competitors doing, and how and why is what we're doing is unique and different. And what are those 2, 3, 4 things, if you put them together or in aggregate, that make what we're doing here so much better or so much more attractive? whether it be we got better returns from an IRR perspective, or we got better terms, or we've got better, outcomes, or we've got creating better opportunities. And this is what we're able to provide, be able to understand what those differentiators and value points are that go into that value proposition. I think people look, most of the time, like you talk about finance world, they got all these spreadsheets and they don't know and say, of all these, and I see it all the time, what are these 10, 12 slides of spreadsheets tell us? And what's the main point we're trying to convey here? And I want to know what that financial story looked like. And it's
Right.
on me, well, we got so much in revenue. Okay, do you have if it's real estate, we've got so much in development, or we've got so much in improvement of the property, or buying for X, and we're going to be able to produce this with a return of this and payouts of this. Okay, well, that's the foundation of a financial story. So why don't we tell that or extract that data and put it into nice looking charts and graphs that communicates something easier to understand than ugly spreadsheets that no one could read because they're this small on a slide, right?
It's amazing. I do feel there's something in our neural pathways that are completely programmed, completely different to create an individual. I mean, I see it all the time in my interactions with my colleagues, but also it takes me back to business school. I got my MBA in finance, but I was the one in front of the class, and I'm not ashamed to say, I had no idea what these people were talking about. I was like, what? Greek letters? What? What are you talking about? But there were those people in the back of the room, true story. And if you're listening to this podcast, you'll know who they are. Most of them were like Russian, or they were, Russian, Eastern European. I mean, they had this different way of viewing, and they were in the back of the class sleeping. And I was there in front of the class. I had no idea what the lecturer was talking about. And in economics, the one in the back of the class snoring in between every other word, he would give the answer. So what's the answer to this? I saw these letters, the E ups. At the end of the day, there are some people, but put me in a room with those people, I will tell the story because I'm very qualitative. And so I wanted to cultivate a sense of quantitative state of being within myself. I wanted to become more well-versed with numbers. They, on the other hand, take away the numbers, they can't do it. So it's interesting to hear how you're working with these people. So I fully understand, because not everyone's created the same. It's clearly for a reason. I deliberately set out myself to be more balanced in that respect so that I can navigate both worlds, the storytelling. So that's why I can understand marketing and I can understand quantitative analysis. And it's rare to have a person who can do both. But I wanted to talk to you about, you talked a little bit about people who go into, now everybody's using ChatGPT, is that what it's called? For pitch deck.
Yeah.
So, well, how is the world of fundraising being disrupted by AI? And I know that's not something we talked about, but it just triggered in my mind something that needs to be talked about. You say you're seeing everybody looking, everyone looks the same. The pitch deck, it's the same templates, AI generated. So how can that be avoided? Because you talked about differentiation as well. How do you differentiate yourself, even if you're using ChatGPT for a pitch deck or for?
Well, I think, yeah, we've seen, I can't tell you, countless decks, and they go, oh, well, all the data's here, all the information's here, and they send me like a 30-slide deck, and I go, oh my God, it's just information regurgitated from the internet, but there's no story here. There's no value points, there's no value proposition. So I was like, what is the story? And they go, what's all in the deck here? And I go, well, no, if you haven't laid your hands on it and put together and helped kind of put together the framework or the structure of how and why you're different, how and why you're better, what are those value points that go into the value proposition? Those are things that ChatGPT can't do yet. I'm sure it will happen before too long. But today, that uniqueness and the packaging of something unique and different is not there today. But I tell people all the time, you still have to put together your thinking cap on and say, okay, you may have harnessed this information, but what are we doing all this data that we've got out of AI? Well, we're going to have to still highlight or understand what the main value points are, what the main differentiators are, and how do we couple those into a framework or story framework with the hero of the story, whether it be the investor or the consumer, and what are the value points that's going to appeal to them, and how do we package that and help them identify what this wants to be and reconstitute that data into a framework that's going to make sense to who the target audience of this deck is going to be, whether it be a partner, investor, anything like that, that you want to be able to compel or communicate and compel them to engage with you and talk about a conversation about working together. And that understanding and taking that data and be able to boil it down into those value points in a story framework is really the hard part. And that's what I encourage people to either do themselves or get some help to try to take that framework or that data and put it into a story framework that is going to be compelling.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you. So, just in summary, if a startup is listening, how do they establish themselves? How do we establish a brand presence in the marketplace?
Lots of hard work.
Sleepless
You know,
nights?
yeah, no doubt, right? No, part of it is understanding who they are, what they're trying to get accomplished, what needs to be done in order for them to get there, or what opportunity they're creating, and then understanding what that wants to look like, not only from a executive summary, from an operational perspective, but understanding that from putting it into a pitch deck and operational manual to be able to put together a model, whether it be for a product, a solution, or a service that you and your team are going to be able to follow and implement. But it's also going to allow you to be able to communicate that story to the marketplace and who either people you're going to be doing business with and or who's going to be investing in you, and compelling people to engage and take part of your journey, and making sure you understand that executive summary, understanding and how do you put that executive summary into a pitch deck. And then from that pitch deck, once you start to gain some traction, you may want to put that into a capital raise deck to be able to raise money to help propel you, take it to the next level a lot faster. And any of these different core components, and how do you package that and put it together to be able to follow, implement, and effectively communicate your idea, your concept, and what you're trying to get accomplished.
Absolutely. And also it's important that you know who's on your team, because you have to make sure that you have just one vision, because sometimes you can be fragmented and that waste time because not everybody, you're arguing each other, trying to go in one direction. And I think that affects the branding. But in summary, I want you to give some insight where you think the future of branding looks. We talked about AI, how it's being disrupted from human intelligence to artificial intelligence. Tell us where you think it's heading right now.
I think that it's going to really separate the unique people that know how to tell a story and or do something unique and different that is innovative and different. There's a lot of same as out in the marketplace, and that's what AI can do, is the same as what other people have done. And so it's going to compel people to find those individuals or those companies that know how to differentiate, know how to package and tell those value points of the value proposition, which is what you need to be able to package and communicate in order to be able to tell your message, tell your pitch deck, or tell your capital raise story to be able to help get people to engage. So I think it's going to, it's like anything else. You've got the 80-20. It's going to replace eventually 80% of the marketplace, but there's going to be the 20% that are going to understand that here's the big things that you need to do and change and modify in order to make it unique and different and better. And I think that those people are going to even be more dependent, more important to help you stand out versus being the same as everybody else in the marketplace.
Absolutely. I'm not one of those who believes that they're going to replace human. There is no way human is going to go off the planet. We are here to stay. And for those, so yeah, we are here to stay. And because I feel that we are the most essential creation on the planet, there is no way we're going to be replaced. So, Michael, this has been such a delightful conversation. Any final thoughts on how someone can prepare for this day where they're either launching or they're expanding? What's the final thought? Some tips for the audience, please.
Well, here's one thing. I'm always happy to talk to people. If you could reach out to me at brandiron.net, or you connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to take a look at what people have done. And we actually have a free complimentary like deck analysis or cap raise deck analysis to give them advice or comments about how they can do what they're doing, maybe do it better. And so we're happy to give some advice or take a look at what people are doing and kind of help point them in the right direction, or maybe build a relationship, how we may be able to work out in the future. So happy to connect and give people advice on how to take it to the next level. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Well, of course, it's been a pleasure. I've been speaking with Michael Doyle, who is the CEO and brand champion of brandiron.net. Go on the website, find him on LinkedIn, or reach out to me. Let me know what your thoughts are. If you have any ideas on anything that's coming up in the world of branding, marketing, put your comments at the bottom of the video. But of course, it's always a pleasure to find new ideas of how to reinvent yourself in this turbulent world that we're living in. So thanks again for supporting the podcast, Frankly Speaking with Sendra D, and I look forward to seeing you or to engaging with you on the next episode. Thanks, Michael.
Hey, thank you so much. Appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. Come back anytime. My pleasure.
Oh, and don't forget, subscribe to Frankly Speaking with Sendra D's podcast and join us every week as we uncover the stories of those who triumphed over life-altering challenges to achieve not just financial success, but a richer, a deeper, a more altruistic life. It's about time we redefine what it means to be a truly affluent individual. Don't you agree? So come and join me. And let's be unstoppable on this journey called life. Because here, affluence isn't just a buzzword. It's a path to waking up to your authentic being.